India in the 1930s was a nation in ferment, resisting colonialism, imagining new ways of being. Working within this complex space was Clifford Mansart, an American missionary who in 1927 started the Nagpara Neighborhood House, a community center for disadvantaged groups in Baikala, Mumbai. In the absence of trained workers, Mansart started his own short-term training program, the first of its kind in India. With the help of the Sir Dorabji Tata Trust, set up in 1932, this venture culminated in the formation of the Sir Dorabji Tata Graduate School of Social Work in 1936. In 1944, it was renamed the Tata Institute of Social Sciences.
You are the first of a new line of public servants. You seek the fullness of life for the people of India, an enterprise in which you have the right to ask all men of goodwill to join you. The fulfillment of this enterprise will not come as a fully developed utopia. It must be built up family by family, neighborhood by neighborhood, community by community, city by city, state by state. It is not a 100-yard dash, it is a long-distance championship.
I applied in 43 and was admitted. We were just about 15 students. Nearly half the students were Parsis. 4 girls and 1 boy who was a friend of mine. One was a Muslim, one was a scheduled caste. And well, it was a combination of Bombay, suburban areas and remote areas. I used to live in the Tata Institute, sleep on library tables and other places. And I used the library of the institute. And I read much beyond what I was required to. And that helped me do well in my master's.
Social work in the 1940s and 50s was a new profession that needed to establish itself in a milieu where social work was regarded as voluntary work. It had to indigenize itself, adapt its methods, and develop its knowledge base to respond to Indian social realities.
Social work as a profession was hardly understood. Nobody knew what it was. And since there were other people who called themselves social workers, there was no the ability to differentiate between a professionally trained and a not trained person was not there. We've gone from treatment and rehabilitation to a stage of prevention, promotion and social change, from participation of the community to the rights of the community, So we have gone to a very important rights-based practice, or should be rights-based practice for social workers.
In 1937, the first field action project of the School of Social Work was launched. The Child Guidance Clinic was a pioneering initiative that paved the way for a whole new area of intervention with children and their families. Now renamed Muskan, it has provided valuable services to generations of young people in difficult situations. In 1940 saw the publication of the very first issue of the Indian Journal of Social Work, which boasts of over 7 decades of uninterrupted publication. 1948, the aftermath of the partition. In the refugee camps were thousands of families requiring urgent help. TISS sent teams of students and faculty who worked in the refugee camps at Kurukshetra.
That time, I was placed in a family camp. And what tragedies we saw. We couldn't believe it. We were crying, but even then we had to work hard and we had to slowly comfort them. But that comfort was not adequate for them. Our work was extremely appreciated by not only by the trustees, but by the government of India. And one good thing, that this was considered as our fieldwork experience, the best. And we still feel that yes, we gained a lot about the humanity, problems, and rehabilitation of the deserted and separated families.
Many years later, when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru visited TISS, he recalled the work of this team. In 1949, the Tata Institute of Social Sciences shifted outside Bombay city to a more spacious campus at Andheri. In 1954, TISS shifted to its first permanent campus in Deonar. A large space on the outskirts of the city, its architecture is an unusual blend of the indigenous and the modern, designed by the noted architect Durga Bajpai. In 1964, TISS became a deemed university. With the deemed university status, the institute set about diversifying its program. In 1967, in response to the increasingly complex and specialized needs of the industry, the social work specialization in labor welfare and industrial relations developed into an independent master's degree program in personnel management and industrial relations. In its present avatar of an MA in human resource management, this is one of the most sought-after programs in the country.
According to the Trade Union Act, any organization with employs 500 employees must have a statutorily qualified welfare officer. So our institute was recognized for that.
At that time, trade unions were very strong. So industrial relations was very important. Afterwards, we had little influence of American or Western, atmosphere. These multinationals started coming. The workforce also was of a different type, little educated, and so on. And then there was influence of those cultures quite a bit. So then people started thinking, oh, labor welfare means only labor welfare. You are not doing anything else. Changes started taking place. And instead of labor, they thought personnel is a proper word, because personnel includes top to bottom.
And I think after Rajiv Gandhi's era, it became human resource management or something like that. The nature of work, of course, has changed. So in our teaching, we used to have emphasis on industrial relations and trade union movement and all that. Now I think we speak more of this development of people, training needs and those kind of things.
In 1969, the first research unit of the Institute, the Unit for Child and Youth Research, was set up with support from UNICEF. Subsequently, several other research units were set up in relevant areas.
The goal at that time was to be useful to the government, to bodies like the World Bank, to bodies like the ILO, to bodies that needed social science research to produce good research for them. That every field of social work should have its own body of research done in India. And that was a very exciting climate to be in. Institute is probably the only institution in the country that has done applicable research or assessment of applications, assessment of efforts, development efforts and so on the scale that I don't think anybody else has done it in the country.
It helped us to go to the grassroots level, no doubt. There is no doubt about it. All our researchers have dirt beneath their fingernails. Our researchers are of a different kind. Our MA students, their capability and capacity to go into the rural areas, even strange rural areas, and collect data is amazing.
Over the years, field action projects have served as important spaces for student learning and for building indigenous social work knowledge. Field action received a fresh impetus in the 1980s, when under the leadership of Professor Armaiti Desai, a number of pioneering projects were initiated. From domestic violence to the rights of under-trials, from a helpline for children in distress to rural development, these projects opened up new areas for intervention and field-based learning. Some of them created new models that were replicated across the nation and beyond.
First few field action projects of the Institute were started simply because fieldwork was absolutely an essential part of social work education. Students had to go to do fieldwork, and there weren't enough agencies where students could be placed. So that's how it was born out of necessity. What it has done is it has provided a space for faculty to experiment and to remain in touch with the field. It has provided opportunities for understanding issues at the grassroots level and then feed it back to teaching. It has so many field action projects have spiraled off research projects which have generated knowledge. I think this is probably the most unique contribution of TISS to education and social work education in particular.
In 1986, as a part of its Golden Jubilee initiatives, TISS decided to establish a rural campus, which in its initial phase focused on field action projects and short-term training programs. Afforestation and sustained work has transformed the once barren plateau into a green haven. Today, the School of Rural Development on this campus offers a 5-year integrated program in rural social work. In 1993, TISS decided to initiate new master's programs in health and hospital administration, consolidating its work in this area and meeting the need for trained professionals in this field.
The genesis was the beginning of a certificate evening program in hospital administration in 1980. And the reason for that program was, in those days, hospitals were managed by the top physician or the top surgeon, and they managed by virtue of their superior knowledge in medicine. And normally people obey them, but that scenario was slowly changing. That's the time there was a need felt that doctors having simple medical qualification cannot manage hospitals, but they also need some managerial skills. It was started in 1980 academic year, and there was overwhelming response for that. I think a lot of credit goes to Professor Armaiti Desai. She was the director, and she understood what it is, and she also interacted with the students. So then she pushed me very hard for setting up this department.
In 2004, the Institute initiated a participatory process of rethinking its programs, which resulted in a major restructuring in 2006.
As a faculty team, I think all of us got together to internally analyze how are we organized, how are we supported, how are we facilitated in our teaching and research work, and how that has resulted in productivity in terms of research output, production, and our teaching. Actually, I think that was far more an internally driven, soul-searching process which the faculty went through. It's very interesting that institution can go through restructuring and repositioning without outside help actually. So both internal environment document and the external environment document were created by the faculty themselves actually. So now once we understood what are our constraints, and once we understood that how else we can locate ourselves in order to be able to be relevant in the social and economic and political context, I think then it became easier for us to revision and reposition ourselves.
The expansion of TISS over the years has called for additional space, which was met by a generous legacy of 11 acres of land adjoining the Deonar campus. The Nauroji campus now houses the schools of HRM, Social Sciences, Habitat Studies, and the Center for Disaster Management. Today, the institute is poised for growth with the emergence of new campuses in Guwahati and Hyderabad. These campuses would be nodal points for initiating innovative programs of education, research, and field action. It has been an eventful 75 years for TISS. From 20 students in 1936 to over 1,800 students in 2011, TISS has given of its best to the nation. It has produced thousands of dedicated human service professionals. It has contributed to social policy, planning, and practice. It has initiated pioneering field action initiatives and contributed to disaster relief and rehabilitation. From Ladakh to the Andamans, from Guwahati to Kutch, it has reached out in manifold ways, touching the lives of individuals and communities. In its Platinum Jubilee year, TISS once again renews its commitment to its vision of an equitable, just, sustainable, and people-centered society.
This has experimented and never limited itself. The mandate of a conventional university, your experience should be small in size, but big in value. During its natural 7 decades of existence, this has carved out a niche for itself in the field of human service, social justice, professional education, and applied social science research. This has always been a center of excellence and has given to the nation outstanding personalities who have contributed to social change in the country. Thank you.